The baby was crying so softly that most people walking past never noticed. But one man stopped. He saw the young mother sitting against a freezing brick wall, wrapping her thin coat around her newborn while her own hands turned red from the cold. She had no money, no warm place to go, and only a half-empty bottle of formula beside her. Then the single dad took off his gloves and placed them in her hands. What happened after that simple gesture would change 3 lives forever. Stay until the end, because this story proves that sometimes one small act of kindness can become the beginning of an entirely new life. Daniel had learned a long time ago that life could change in a single moment. He had experienced it himself when his wife died unexpectedly 3 years earlier, leaving him alone to raise his 6-year-old daughter Emma. Since then, Daniel had become quieter. He worked hard, paid his bills, took Emma to school every morning, helped with homework every evening, and tried his best to make sure she never felt the emptiness that had entered their home. He wasn't wealthy, and he never pretended to be. He worked as a mechanic at a small auto repair shop across town. Most nights, he came home tired, but he always saved enough energy to read Emma a bedtime story. That winter evening, Daniel had taken Emma to the neighborhood grocery store because she needed medicine for a sore throat. Snowflakes drifted through the cold air as they walked beneath the streetlights. Emma held her father's hand while carrying a tiny paper bag containing her medicine. "Daddy, can we get hot chocolate?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "If there's enough money left after groceries." Emma laughed. "There is always enough for hot chocolate." Daniel smiled again, but before he could answer, something near the grocery store entrance caught his attention. A young woman was sitting on the ground beside the brick wall. She was holding a tiny baby against her chest. Her coat looked far too thin for the weather. Her hair was messy and her face was pale from exhaustion. A small worn bag sat beside her, along with a nearly empty bottle of formula. The baby moved beneath the blanket and made a weak crying sound. Daniel stopped walking. Emma looked up at him. "Daddy." He didn't answer immediately. He watched the woman trying to warm the baby's tiny hands beneath the blanket. She noticed him looking and quickly lowered her eyes. She had the expression of someone who had learned not to expect help. Daniel knew that expression. He had seen it on people who were embarrassed by their circumstances. People who didn't want pity. People who simply wanted one more chance. He approached slowly, keeping a respectful distance. "Excuse me?" he said gently. The woman looked up. "Yes, is the baby okay?" She nodded quickly. "She's cold, but she's okay." Her voice trembled. Daniel glanced toward the grocery store. Warm yellow light spilled through the windows, making the cold sidewalk look even harsher. "Do you have somewhere warm to go?" The woman's eyes filled with tears. She hesitated before answering. "Not tonight." Daniel felt something tighten inside his chest. He looked at Emma. His daughter was staring at the baby with concern. "Daddy, she's cold." The woman immediately shook her head. "We're fine. Please don't worry about us." Daniel understood what she was doing. She was protecting her dignity. So instead of asking embarrassing questions, he simply removed his gloves. Then he removed his scarf. "Here," he said, handing them to her. She stared at him. "I can't take those." "You can," Daniel replied. "I have another jacket in the car." That wasn't true. But she didn't need to know that. He placed the gloves gently into her hands. Emma suddenly took off her own knitted hat. "She can have mine too." The mother looked at the little girl and began crying. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel crouched down beside her. "What's your name?" "Maya." "And the baby?" "Lily." Daniel smiled softly. "Beautiful names." Maya looked down at Lily. "I was supposed to start working at a restaurant tonight, but they called and said the position was gone. I spent what I had on formula. I thought I'd find somewhere else." Her voice broke. Daniel didn't ask her to explain further. He simply stood and opened the grocery store door. "Come inside." Maya hesitated. "I can't afford anything." "I'm not asking you to buy anything." Daniel looked at Emma. "We're getting hot chocolate." Emma smiled. "And maybe something for Lily." For the first time that night, Maya smiled too. Inside the grocery store, the warmth immediately surrounded them. Maya sat near the small cafe section while Daniel bought hot chocolate, soup, diapers, formula, and a warm blanket. Maya kept saying she couldn't accept so much, but Daniel calmly replied, "Tonight isn't about what you can afford. It's about getting through tonight." Those words stayed with her. Daniel understood something important. When someone is struggling, constantly reminding them that they are poor can make their pain worse. Kindness should never make another person feel smaller. It should make them feel human again. Emma sat beside Maya and carefully watched baby Lily sleeping beneath the new blanket. She's tiny, Emma whispered. Maya smiled. She's only 3 weeks old. Daniel looked at her with concern. 3 weeks. Maya nodded. Her father left before she was born. She looked down. I thought I could handle everything myself. Daniel didn't tell her she should have asked for help sooner. Instead, he said, sometimes being strong means knowing when you need someone beside you. Maya looked at him as if nobody had ever said that to her before. Daniel had learned the lesson himself after losing his wife. There had been months when he tried to do everything alone because he believed asking for help meant weakness. It didn't. It simply meant he was human. After Maya finished the soup, Daniel noticed her eyes becoming heavy. She had probably barely slept. He asked if she had a safe place for the night. Maya shook her head. She had been staying in temporary shelters, but the nearest one had no available family rooms. Daniel immediately called a local community center he knew about through a coworker. They had emergency family accommodation, but the staff said they were almost full. Daniel explained the situation. After several minutes, they agreed to hold a room for Maya and Lily until midnight. Maya covered her face and cried quietly. I don't know how to thank you. Daniel shook his head. You don't have to. Why are you doing this? She asked. Daniel looked at Emma. Because once, someone helped me when I didn't know how to ask. It was true. After his wife's death, an elderly neighbor had brought meals to his home for months. She never asked for anything. She simply showed up. That kindness had taught Daniel something he had never forgotten. When someone helps you during your darkest hour, you don't repay them by giving money. You repay them by becoming the person who helps someone else. Emma suddenly pulled a small red wallet from her backpack. Daddy, I have $5. Daniel smiled. What for? I was saving it for candy. She looked at Maya. Maybe Lily needs something more. Maya's eyes filled with tears again. Sweetheart, that's very kind. Emma smiled. My daddy says helping people is important. Daniel looked at his daughter proudly. He realized she was learning the lesson not from his words, but from watching what he did. A few minutes later, Daniel helped Maya carry her belongings outside. Snow continued falling, but she was wearing his gloves and scarf. Lily was wrapped in a warm blanket, and the baby had enough formula for several days. Before they left, Maya looked at Daniel. I was sitting outside thinking nobody could see me. Daniel replied, saw you. Those 3 words meant more to her than he realized. She had felt invisible for weeks. She had walked past hundreds of people, yet nobody had stopped. Daniel didn't solve her entire life in one evening. He simply gave her something she desperately needed, the belief that tomorrow might be different. The community center was only 10 minutes away, and Daniel offered to drive Maya and Lily there. Maya sat in the back seat holding Lily close while Emma sat beside her, talking excitedly about school. Daniel listened quietly as Maya explained that she had once worked at a bakery. She loved cooking, but after Lily was born, everything became difficult. Her savings disappeared quickly. Her apartment rent fell behind. Eventually, she lost her home. I kept thinking I'd fix everything tomorrow, she said. Then tomorrow kept getting harder. Daniel glanced at her through the rearview mirror. You haven't failed. Maya looked surprised. It feels like I have? No, Daniel said. You're still here. You're still taking care of your daughter. You're still trying. That's not failure. Maya looked down at Lily and smiled through tears. When they arrived at the community center, a staff member welcomed them warmly. Maya hesitated before stepping out of the car. She looked at Daniel's gloves covering her hands. I need to return these. Daniel smiled. Keep them. But they're yours. My hands will survive. Emma giggled. Maya hugged the little girl carefully. Thank you. Emma whispered. Take care of Lily. Maya promised she would. Daniel was about to leave when Maya suddenly called his name. Daniel. He turned around. Yes. Would you believe me if I said I don't want charity? Daniel nodded. I believe you. Then maybe I need work more than money. Daniel thought for a moment. His auto shop needed someone to handle customer calls, scheduling, and invoices. It wasn't exactly Maya's background, but she had worked with customers for years and was organized. I can ask my boss if we have an opening, he said. Maya stared at him. You do that? I'll ask. I can't promise anything. That distinction mattered. Daniel wasn't promising to rescue her. He was offering a door. She would have to walk through it herself. The next morning, Daniel spoke with his shop manager. There was indeed a part-time administrative position available. Maya interviewed 2 days later. She got the job. Her first paycheck wasn't large, but it was hers. She used it to rent a small room in a safe building and buy baby supplies. Slowly, things began changing. Daniel didn't become her savior, he became her friend. Sometimes he brought Emma to the shop, and Maya would wave from the office window. Emma loved visiting Lily. Weeks passed, and Maya became more confident. One afternoon, she approached Daniel with an idea. She wanted to start baking again. She had been making small boxes of homemade pastries for coworkers. People loved them. Daniel encouraged her to sell them locally. Maya started with 5 boxes, then 10, then 20. Her small side business slowly grew. She eventually saved enough money to rent a tiny kitchen space. Months later, she opened a small bakery. The first customer through the door was Daniel. Emma stood beside him holding flowers. Maya nearly cried when she saw them. "You came." Daniel smiled coarse. Emma handed her the flowers. "For your bakery." Maya hugged her. The bakery wasn't fancy. It had 6 tables, warm lights, and the smell of fresh bread. But it belonged to Maya. She had built it herself. Daniel had simply helped her find the first step. That evening, Maya placed a small handwritten sign near the counter. "Sometimes hope begins with one person stopping to notice." Daniel read it and smiled. He knew exactly what it meant. Kindness hadn't changed Maya's life because he was rich or powerful. He wasn't either. It changed her life because for one night, he refused to look away. 1 year later, snow began falling again over the same city streets. Daniel drove past the grocery store where he had first met Maya. He slowed down for a moment and looked toward the brick wall. The place where she had once sat shivering was now empty. Instead, warm lights glowed from a nearby bakery window. Daniel smiled. He had already guessed what it was, but he still felt proud when he saw the sign above the door, Lily's Kitchen. He parked the car and walked inside with Emma. Maya looked up from behind the counter and immediately smiled. "You're late." Daniel laughed. "Traffic." Emma ran toward Lily, who was now walking and laughing around the bakery. Maya hugged Daniel. "I still remember that night." Daniel looked around the little bakery. "I do too." Maya shook her head. "I don't think you understand what you gave us." Daniel smiled. "A pair of gloves." "No," she said softly. "You gave me the courage to believe I could stand again." Daniel became quiet. Maya continued. "That night, I thought my life was over. I thought my daughter deserved better than me. I thought everyone had forgotten us. Then you stopped." Daniel looked toward Emma. "Actually, she made me stop." Emma smiled proudly. Maya laughed. "Then I owe both of you." She walked behind the counter and returned with a small package. "What's that?" Daniel asked. "Open it." Inside was a pair of handmade wool gloves. Maya had knitted them herself. "They're for you," she said. "You gave me yours that night. I wanted you to have something in return." Daniel held them carefully. "These are better than mine." Maya smiled. "They're made with gratitude." Emma suddenly pointed toward the bakery entrance. A young man stood outside with a little boy who looked cold and frightened. The boy had no gloves. Daniel noticed immediately. Before he could move, Emma grabbed his hand. "Daddy." He looked at her. She pointed toward the door. Daniel smiled. Maya watched as Daniel walked outside. He removed his new gloves and handed them to the boy. The child's father tried to refuse. "Sir, we can't take those." Daniel smiled. "You can." He looked at Emma. "Sometimes you just have to help." Maya stood at the doorway watching. Then she smiled because she understood. The kindness had continued. It had moved from Daniel to Maya, from Maya to Lily, and now from Emma to another family. It was a small moment, but it carried a meaning none of them would forget. The little boy looked at the gloves on his hands and smiled for the first time that evening. His father quietly thanked Daniel, his voice breaking with emotion. Daniel simply placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "One day, when you can, do the same for someone else." The man nodded. Maya watched from the doorway with tears in her eyes. She realized that Daniel hadn't simply helped her survive one difficult night. He had shown her how kindness could become a chain, passing from one person to another until someone who once had nothing could become a source of hope for somebody else. Daniel returned inside with cold hands, and Maya immediately handed him a warm cup of coffee. "You never learn," she teased. He laughed. "Maybe not." Emma climbed onto a chair beside Lily. The two girls began drawing pictures together while snow fell outside. Daniel looked around the bakery and realized something beautiful. A year earlier, he had thought he was helping a stranger survive one freezing night. He hadn't known that his simple choice would become the beginning of a family, like friendship. He hadn't known that Maya would rebuild her life. He hadn't known that her daughter would grow up surrounded by people who cared about her. And he certainly hadn't known that his own daughter would learn one of life's greatest lessons simply by watching him. Kindness doesn't always require wealth. Sympathy doesn't require understanding someone's entire story. Dignity means helping someone without making them feel less than you. And humanity means remembering that every person you pass may be fighting a battle you cannot see. If this story touched your heart, remember Daniel's simple choice. He didn't ask Maya why she was poor. He didn't judge her. He simply stopped. Sometimes that's all someone needs. A person willing to stop, look and say, "I see you." If you believe kindness still has the power to change lives, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs a little hope today.